Hi everyone. Today it is the Beatles, Rubber Soul, and well, I have some Beatles Rubber Soul, beatlee Rubber Soul-y Englishy tea, but in a rather non-English drinking vessel, isn't it? As far as tea goes. Anyway, I figure it works. Maybe that's the Americanness in me showing up. Well, today I will be listening to Girl, and I have a good bit of reading I see in front of me here, so let's get started. When asked about the song during an interview, John commented, "When Paul and I wrote lyrics, we used to laugh about it like the Tin Pan Alley people would. It was only later on that we tried to match the lyrics to the tune." Yeah, I get the idea. They're writing lyrics and they're coming up with something funny, fun, and then they're like, well, we have to find a tune to match that. Or was he even saying that they would put any random tune with the lyrics and it was only later in their experience that they started trying to match the type of lyrics to the type of tune? Either way, it makes sense because I have noticed as we're progressing that their linking of musical ideas to what's expressed in the lyrics is becoming clearer and feels more and more intentional. Paul recalls the writing session in this way. "It was John's original idea, but it was very much co-written. I remember writing The Pain and the Pleasure and A Man Must Break His Back. It was all very working on the chain gang, so I credit that as being toward John, but I put in quite a bit. It wasn't one that he came in with fully finished at all." You know, I always am interested to hear how their creative process develops and how collaborative a lot of these pieces were. It's not just that they were getting together and having a sort of jam session and saying, oh, this idea is fun, let's fit this in. It's like they were intentionally sitting down, not just to create the music, but the lyrics as well, together. Someone comes with an idea. I need some help, guys, to finish this up. Okay, let's all pitch in. As for the true inspiration of the lyrics, John's 1970 quote is very detailed, saying, "Girl is real. There is no such thing as the girl. She was a dream. But the words are all right. It wasn't just a song, and it was about that girl. That turned out to be Yoko in the end, the one that a lot of us were looking for." John elaborated further about this dream girl by saying, "I always had this dream of this particular woman coming into my life. I knew it wouldn't be someone buying Beatles records." Sorry, all you girls buying Beatles records. Not for John. "I was hoping for a woman who could give me what I get from a man intellectually." Not surprising. "I wanted someone I could be myself with." I think that probably that's every person's, well, most people's dream partner. Surprisingly, the lyrics take on a religious slant as well, as Lennon continued, "It's about, was she taught when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure? Did she understand it?" Sort of philosophy quotes I was thinking about when I wrote it. I was trying to say something or other about Christianity, which I was opposed to at the time because I was brought up in the church. I was pretty heavy on the church in both books, but it was never picked up, although it was obviously there. I was talking about Christianity, in that you have to be tortured to attain heaven. That was the Catholic Christian concept, to be tortured and then it'll be all right, which seems to be true, but not in their concept of it. I didn't believe it in that you have to be tortured to attain anything. It just so happens that you are. Interesting perspective. Paul about the recording session. "My main memory is that John wanted to hear the breathing, wanted it to be very intimate. So George Martin put a special compressor on the voice. Then John dubbed it. Girl is considered to be one of the most melancholic and complex of the Beatles' earlier love songs." Well, this sounds like it's going to be an interesting one to explore. For me, kind of seeing how their musical expression of the dream girl comes out. And, well, before I go to listen to my YouTube viewers, I want to say I'm sorry that we cannot put the music up here on YouTube. And I've been receiving a lot of questions. How come you can't do it and other channels can? I don't know. I wish I understood. I wish I knew the mechanism well enough in the YouTube system to understand why we have been prohibited, but others can still manage to do it. I really don't know, but I apologize. You can find it on Ko-fi and Patreon, the full uncut version. And, well, let's listen now.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story?
Well, that was different. Different in a very nice way. Oh, I'm kind of surprised that in the introduction, one of the last sentences said, "It is considered to be one of the most melancholic and complex of the Beatles' earlier love songs." To me, this doesn't fit anywhere early at all, but actually I understand, because what am I, still in the 50s number or 60s? Getting somewhere in there. I forgot to check the number of... Oh, this is 54th. Right. And I forgot to read this at the beginning. It is 54th in the series, and the official genre categorization is folk rock. Okay. Read that now. Let's go back and pull it apart, and I'll tell you the things that stand out to me and that I think feel special about this, because it does have a very special quality to it. I suppose kind of like he's looking for a special girl. So here we go.
Is there anybody going to listen to?
And the first thing I noticed when this started to play is that there is not a single note of introduction. I guess I've heard a few of their songs along the way like that. They tend to favor having some sort of instrumental placement, even if it's a single chord. But, let's see, was it Won't Be Long Now? Maybe, that starts off with right into the voice, and I guess there have been a few others like that along the way. This is one of those. And maybe it's because I've come to kind of expect an intro from the Beatles. Or maybe it's simply because the whole setup of this piece, I mean, maybe it's not so much about my expectations of the Beatles in particular, but what this did to me when I was listening is it pulled me in very quickly. And that's an interesting thing for me to observe, because very often, I mean, the introduction is not just a convenience for the performer of, oh, okay, let's get our key, let's get ourselves oriented. Okay, now we can join in with our voices. The introduction can do a lot musically. It can set the tone. It can create a contrast. It can create a diversion so that what comes later is a surprise. It can be the thing that draws us in. We don't have any of those here. Instead, the thing that draws us in and makes it feel incredibly immediate. And I remember one of the quotes from the introductory paragraphs I read used the word intimate. Well, I feel like my sense of this being an intimate kind of song starts right at the very first 2 or 3 notes. Doesn't wait until we hear that sharp breath intake in the chorus. Something about this pulls me in, and it did it incredibly effectively and very quickly.
Is there anybody going to...
It might also have somewhat to do with the lyrics, because it starts with, is there anybody? And you think, okay. And the voice has this little bit of a quaver to it, and it all combines, and you think, okay, is there anybody what? Is there anybody who loves me? Is there anybody who will pay attention to me? Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? And I borrowed that, yes. But it gives me that feeling right from the start. And then what comes in is this kind of swing rhythm, easygoing pattern in the guitar strumming. And that layered with this urgent, poignant first few melody notes. Something about it is, although it's so simple, I mean, we just have 3 notes. Is there anybody going to listen to my story? I'm faking it because I've only heard this once, right? It's a simple little melody, although it's a beautifully written melody. There's so much we could say about it's well crafted and all of that, but that's basically a given at this point in the Beatles' progress through life. We understand they're good at writing melodies. And so I won't spend a lot of time on that. It's a given at this point. But it's this immediacy that caught me at the beginning and layered with this kind of almost sultry feeling swing style accompaniment that comes in a couple notes later on the downbeat.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story?
I like the way that he's singing. Once he gets into it, you notice he's singing in a swing style as well. But it's more than just a consistent swung rhythm. He's very loose with it. And I appreciate how this feels kind of like, in a way, an unaccompanied song. Unaccompanied because he sings it as if there's nobody telling him when to arrive on the beat, where exactly to place the subdivision of each note. It flows as it comes. It comes out of him just however it comes out. And that also is one of the things that makes me get this impression that it's intimate and it's immediate. In other words, it feels like he's genuinely asking this question. Is there anybody who's going to listen to my story? I would like to tell this story, and this story needs to be told. It's something that is personal to me, and I would like somebody to hear this. And he starts to tell the story, and it is simply a natural telling of the story, not rehearsed, not planned, not placed exactly on the beat for precise marking of time and rhythm and all of that. It's just the story as it comes out of him. And that is what caught me at the beginning. Very beginning, that's what drew me in, almost took my breath away.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story?
All right, a couple other things. This first verse is clearly the dream girl. And I was interested to see how they expressed their ideals and their dreams for this kind of relationship, this kind of person to have a relationship with, this kind of girl. We start in a minor key. That's another thing that really catches us here. And in fact, a little sidestep to a technical thing, which is not irrelevant in this context. When we come to the second part of this line, all about the girl who came to stay, do you hear this sort of if I just kind of improv here. you start to hear this wide gap between these two notes. And then a very narrow space below. That is the what we call the harmonic minor scale interval setup between the 6, 7, and top 1, 8, whatever you want to call it. It can be used to fine effect, to create a sort of oriental soundscape, or kind of an exotic feel, or feeling of forlorn loneliness. It's not an interval that voices love. Meaning, very often when we're singing, we smooth it out. And it's not just voices, it's melody. Melody doesn't always love this. We tend to smooth it out. And so we end up with something that, let's go the same range. Well, that sounds major, right? But that's how the melody naturally wants to go. And then we would lower it on the descent. A lot smoother, right? But to have this, a little bit angular in there, and just something different about it. Why am I belaboring this point? Because in all this smooth swing, flow, intimacy, immediacy, personal feel to this piece, we hear that interval. Of course, it's John Lennon singing, and he's been singing for years, and he's great at everything, and so it's not difficult for him to nail those intervals. The music itself doesn't seem to labor to get around that interval. It's a little bit of, I'm trying to decide if I should say exotic quality, because the piece doesn't strike me as exotic, and yet to have this little bit here, there's a melancholy element. There's this feeling of kind of otherworldliness to it, which comes in this little passage right here. All about the girl who came to stay. Just as he's singing those words and coming to the end of his first line, well, of course, as we go on, we hear it many times over, but it becomes a significant feature of the melody.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story?
It's as if he's like, oh, this girl. Oh, if I could only express, if I could only tell you, it's as if he can taste it, he can feel it, he can remember the feeling of having his first taste of this girl. Oh, this girl. A very subtle thing, though, happened here. Well, maybe not so subtle, but it happened very smoothly. We kind of changed keys. As soon as he got to, ah, girl, you notice we lost that quality of this. Listen to what's happening here. It doesn't have that kind of anguished feeling, does it? Instead, it's more building off of the major. Ah, girl. Well, he kind of falls into a G minor at the end, so he doesn't completely lose the minor quality, but this leaning into the major, girl, it softens it a bit, it warms up the space musically a bit. And of course, it's not just the harmony that does that, it's the vocal backing as well. Suddenly, everything comes in, surrounding this space. Oh, girl, it's as if we're just immersed in this space. So naturally done. No fanfare about it. No pretense. No technical effort. It just happens so nicely here. Such a release of tension. Now here is where it gets a bit interesting, because the first verse was lyrically so much the dream girl, and she's the kind of girl you want so much it makes you sorry. You don't regret a single day. Now, after that, things kind of go downhill, don't they? I mean, lyrically, I tried to leave her, but she would turn to me and start to cry. In other words, I'm stuck here because she's somehow holding me with her strings. There's something. She promises the earth to me, and I believe her. Well, after all this time, I don't know why. In other words, she's not all that you thought she was. And let's go ahead and, while we're on the topic, let's read through the rest of the lyrics. She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there. You feel a fool. This is not the dream girl at all. She acts as if it's understood. When you say she's looking good, she's cool. In other words, it means nothing when you compliment her. It's irrelevant. And then the final verse gets a little bit more philosophical. Was she told when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure? Is that what she believes? Did she understand it when they said that a man must break his back to earn his day of leisure? Leisure in the British pronunciation, not the American. Leisure, of course, because it has to rhyme with pleasure. But I caught that. Will she still believe it when he's dead? In other words, I'm breaking my back. I'm destroying myself. I'm going through so much pain and agony and suffering in the hopes of achieving something beautiful with this girl. I mean, this is not the dream girl. Well, it's interesting to me that this becomes the chosen way to express what it is in a girl you're looking for. In other words, we go from the positive dream to the flip side of this flip side is what I don't want. And this flip side is what I've experienced to date. And I'm really looking for something that is not this. And they managed to somehow combine the two in these lyrics so that we have the picture of the dream girl, and then we have the picture of all that we've experienced that has promised to be a dream girl and isn't. And we're still looking for this dream girl. It is still a dream. Or as was it Lennon said, it is not the girl. There is not a specific girl, and yet it is a dream for a specific girl. Which, as he said, eventually became Yoko. He found it for him. But that, with this bittersweet, tender, shifting from tender to agonizingly yearning qualities, to a little bit of sultry swing, to it shifts so naturally, so easily, we don't even really notice it, and yet we feel it along the way.
To cry, and she promises the earth to me.
And in this context now, the negative of the dream girl, the not dream girl, this becomes more pain than pleasure, more stress and distress and perhaps even frustration than remembering the first taste of what is so beautiful. And there's a tiny little twinkling of another instrument. And maybe it's a guitar, maybe it's a dulcimer, maybe it's a something very light here that my ears are picking up. I almost burst out laughing when I listened to this because, oh, this is so emotional and intimate. The whole piece just pulls you in, and you feel all these feelings through the music, through the voice and the expression. And then here comes tit 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 tit. I feel like this must have been one of their naughty moments. I do, because okay, they're kind of tending towards, well, let's listen to it.
She's the kind of girl who puts you...
You can almost say it's toot, 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 but it actually, as you go along, you realize you're hearing tit, 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 and they're making these really quite suggestive and titillating for the audience. In some way, they managed to get it past the censor, so. But that's not the main lyrics. So they can argue that it's just the vocalizing here.
She's the kind of girl who puts you down when...
This. She's the kind of girl who puts you down. When friends are there, you feel a fool. Now, I was a bit distracted by this whole tit, 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 tit thing. But there's something else I noticed here. We've been having this lovely rising and falling, undulating melody, which shifts from the minor with that funny little interval to the major and the feeling of release, inhale, exhale, and all of that in the chorus. And now in this section, it's not just the tit 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 that is so persistent. But even the melody, look at this. We start on a C right here. You don't have to read music. Every single one of these notes is exactly in the same place on the page. Every single one. We're building up a lot of tension here. And kind of hammering. Well, it's early summer. And my little girl is fascinated with the wildlife outside. And in the morning, we have a woodpecker out the window who pecks on a tree. And she's working so hard to learn how to make a pecking sound. But this is kind of a woodpecker. Peck, 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 peck. She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there. You feel the hammering, pounding, the relentless attack of just driving you into the ground in the most sensitive places and peck, 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 peck. And at some point you're just not, it's too much. And at the same time, musically, this builds a tension. She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there. You feel a fool. And so when, as I said, you don't have to read music to understand this. When this note comes in on fool, look at the difference. Compare that with these. It's a different place on the page, and you hear it as well. In fact, I can play it. She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there. You feel a fool. Fool. It rises up from being in one place to quite a distance up, a fourth, and then we kind of fall down. A fool. It's accented. It's forceful. It's explosive. It's as if peck, 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 pound, 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 pound. Attack, 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 attack. Explosion. I'm a fool. I feel like a fool, and I have nothing else. I just feel this feeling of shame and foolishness and idiocy and embarrassment and humiliation. All of this comes pouring out in this one note. You hear the tension building. There's one other thing that is playing into this whole building of tension other than this chit, 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 and the static note and the explosion on fool. There's one other thing. As I said, we've been kind of swinging along rhythmically, and the voice has been singing this sort of swing style, loose, flexible. She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there. You feel and it remains this way in this section. But then these are very straight and precise. So you feel this conflict between the loose and fluid and easy and the sharp, precise, rhythmically placed. Such a change there. We're back to girl. By the way, this is one of the Beatles' special techniques where they like to throw in, as I've mentioned before, a melisma, several notes over one syllable. And it always happens here on girl. We've had this tick, 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 tick. So what I was saying is, if you listen to just the voice, you can feel the squishiness of it. But if you put your ears to the backing chorus, tick, 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 you feel the attack and the tension and the rigidity, the brittleness. And then, at the end of that, everything just kind of magically shifts and changes and comes back together to this girl.
When you say she's looking good, she acts as if it's understood.
At this point, we're feeling a little bit confused. It's a bit ambiguous. Is this girl? Is this the dream girl? Is this the girl that is attacking us? There's this feeling. And this is where I'm going to pay attention to the music more than the lyrics. It feels like a release. It feels like a salve. It feels like something beautiful and cool and soothing has re-entered our experience when we come to this girl moment. The way it's sung, the way it flows there, to me, that's what it feels like. Well, that kind of takes me back to what I said about the way they've set this up, you know? The lyrics we could take them to say, this is my experience in trying to find a dream girl. I meet a girl, she seems like the dream, everything, and then as the relationship develops, I discover there's no such thing as a dream girl, and things are just not as perfect as I hoped they would be. And that's a fair and legitimate way to read the lyrics. It is. But when I come to this, right in this moment, in this context, I feel like saying, yes, that's fair and legitimate, but musically, we're being thrown back in a strange place for that reading. We're being thrown back to this beautiful girl. And we feel as if this girl exists in this moment. And for that reason, I tend to think of this, I'm coming to think of this as more the negative of the dream girl. In other words, I am talking about the dream girl all along, but sometimes I'm talking about what the dream girl is not. And so I have the negative, and then I have the actual dream of this girl. And that's how it feels to me when I listen to the musical. It's just a bit too sophisticated and complex to feel like just a story of my experience trying to find a dream girl, and it always breaks down. As I said, that view is perfectly legitimate, and if that's how you view it, it's fine. And maybe you have some other perspectives to throw in too. But here, this moment just feels so soothing. Especially after all of this woodpecker tit, tit, tap, tap, poke, poke, drill, drill.
She's cool. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
as if someone just put a cool hand on your forehead and touched your face, and suddenly everything is okay. But now we're going back to this negative impression. How many of you have actually sat and listened to that guitar melody that is being plucked there? It's a bit tricky to hear it as a melody because it's being plucked by a guitar, acoustic guitar, and it doesn't have a lot of sustain. But as I'm listening, it really has a nice melodic shape. Then it comes back around. Isn't that lovely? You can imagine it's being played by, well, it could be sung by the backing chorus. Somehow I imagine it being sung by a child's voice or a children's chorus, or maybe by a violin or perhaps a flute. Flute would be kind of pretty there, wouldn't it?
Was she told when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure?
As this is being sung now without the voices, well, we're coming to the end. We hear this little toot, 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 toot. Not by voices this time, but by guitar. So we have this layering of the tit 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 sound and this walking little line, and they come from different parts of the song, and here they are coming together. And it kind of fades away unresolved, as if this dream has not yet been realized. We have built in our minds this image of our dream girl, both what she is and what she is not. And now the dream continues, the search continues until hopefully some point we happen upon her. Well, as it said, John found Yoko, and for him, that was the dream match, the girl. Well, I put this here, and then I've been so involved in the music, I didn't even think about touching it in the middle of all of this. It's okay, probably I don't want to spill on things, but it's good tea. Well, girl, this was something. This was different, surprising, deeply enjoyable for me. Such a simple little piece, but it seems as if the Beatles have suddenly tumbled into a new world as far as their compositional skills. They're really just making massive leaps and strides, because here we have, what is this, a 2-minute and 32-second piece of music? Every part of it is simple. Each instrument is not playing anything complex. But it's so emotionally expressive, not just one emotional color, but the shifts and changes and the way it carries you through so many different emotional worlds in such a short space, and beautifully so. I enjoyed this a lot. And I'm just excited about what comes next. So I'm looking forward to the next one, and we'll see you soon.